Our mission is to completely decode the true mechanics of procrastination and productivity. We are diving into Darius Foroux's insights on getting meaningful things done, just to figure out what is actually happening in our brains when we avoid the work we know we need to do.
If you are looking for a new app or like a Pomodoro timer to solve your underlying problems, you really won't find it here. We're going to explore productivity for what it truly is, which is a deeply ingrained inner emotional battle.
Right.
We will get into the actual neuroscience of focus, and we're going to look at why relying on sheer willpower is fundamentally just a losing strategy.
I am so glad we are ditching the hacks because the real mechanics are infinitely more interesting. To kick things off, there is this brilliant quote from Abraham Lincoln from our source material that just serves as the foundation for this whole discussion.
Oh, the responsibility quote.
Yeah, he said, "You cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today." It hits so hard because it strips away all the excuses, you know?
It really does.
Procrastination isn't about bad time management. It is not about a lack of scheduling. It is literally just the act of escaping difficult, tedious, or uncomfortable work. We know what we have to do, but we actively look for psychological relief instead.
The word relief is crucial there. When the work is hard, like writing a complex report or making cold sales calls, nobody's going to hand you the results instantly.
Right, there's no immediate reward.
Exactly. You have to endure the discomfort of the process. But our brains are evolutionarily hardwired to seek the path of least resistance.
We want the easy way out.
Always. We perceive that cognitive friction as a literal threat. So our amygdala kicks in, and we just escape to something safe and easy.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the standard advice you always hear from motivational speakers is, just push through it. Use more willpower. Be disciplined.
Just try harder, right?
Yeah, but I have to push back on that because willpower doesn't seem to work that way in reality. Think of it like this: relying on willpower to do uncomfortable work is like trying to hold your breath underwater.
Oh, that's a really good analogy.
Right. Sure, you can force yourself to do it for a little while. You can white-knuckle it at your desk and force your eyes to look at the spreadsheet. But eventually, your brain panics.
It needs oxygen.
It absolutely gasps for air. And in this context, gasping for air looks like suddenly finding yourself 2 hours deep into scrolling social media or, shopping online for a blender you don't even need.
The breath-holding analogy is highly accurate. But the reality of the rebound effect is even more severe.
Wait, more severe than the blender shopping?
Much more. Willpower is a finite cognitive resource. When it runs out, the brain doesn't just return to a neutral state, it aggressively overcompensates.
Interesting.
This dynamic is mapped out in a highly cited study from researchers Diane Tice and Roya Baumeister. They demonstrated that procrastination is not innocent laziness.
It's not just us being lazy.
No, nor is it some quirky personality trait. It is a fundamental failure of self-regulation. In fact, the behavioral patterns of chronic procrastination mirror the exact neurological pathways seen in alcohol and drug abuse.
Wow. Comparing it to substance abuse, that drastically elevates it from a bad habit to a serious destructive behavioral loop.
It is a destructive loop. The Tyson-Baumeister research shows that this ongoing failure of self-regulation actively generates depression, irrational beliefs, and plummeting self-esteem.
That is heavy.
Yeah, what's happening mechanically is that chronic procrastinators lack an internal systemic engine to regulate their behavior.
So they have no internal drive mechanism.
Right. Because that internal engine is missing, they become entirely dependent on the external panic of imminent deadlines.
Ah, the night before panic?
Exactly. They literally require the chemical rush of cortisol and adrenaline. That panic you feel at 11 p.m. the night before a project is due to override their brain's avoidance mechanisms.
So if willpower acts like holding our breath, and we know we cannot rely on it without eventually, gasping for a distraction binge, we have to find an alternative.
We do.
We must build an external structure that breathes for us, so to speak. We need a system.
A robust system is the only sustainable answer. And a true productivity system is fundamentally built on inflexible rules.
I have to challenge that concept, though. Darius Foroux makes the bold claim that rules are actually the best thing about life. But wait, I thought the whole point of success, especially financial or career success, was achieving the freedom to do whatever you want whenever you want.
That's the common assumption, yeah.
Doesn't a strict system of rules totally kill your autonomy and freedom?
What's fascinating here is that we intuitively view freedom and constraint as polar opposites. But structurally, they rely on one another.
How so?
There is a brilliant insight from Josh Weltman. He's an advertising creative director who co-produced the show Mad Men.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he noted that solving a problem requires a weird combination of freedom and constraint. Without rules, we are just adrift in a sea of options. Rules eliminate the immense cognitive friction of constantly deciding what to do next.
Oh, I see. So the rules don't trap you, they actually liberate your mental bandwidth for the work that actually matters.
Precisely that. True productivity is not about massive, superhuman, caffeine-fueled all-nighters. It is about the slow, steady compounding of small systemic wins.
Right.
The psychological goal is merely to improve by 0.1% a day. To illustrate how powerful the sequential approach is, look at Warren Buffett's wealth compounding.
Okay, what about it?
The math reveals a staggering detail. Warren Buffett acquired 99% of his net worth after the age of 50.
Wait, really? 99% of his wealth was acquired after he turned 50?
Yes, after 50.
That is almost impossible to wrap your head around, especially when we are, completely obsessed with 20-something billionaires in the tech world right now.
It serves as the ultimate mathematical proof that success is sequential, not simultaneous.
Right, you don't have to win the lottery all at once.
Exactly. You do not have to do everything at once, and you don't have to rely on giant leaps. You build a system, you adhere to your rules, and you allow the compounding effect of 0.1% daily improvements to take over year after year.
It is crazy to think about Buffett building that kind of wealth so late in the game just by letting things compound. But it begs the question, if the secret is just tiny 0.1% daily wins, what does a 0.1% win actually look like in the trenches?
That's the practical part.
Because I am guessing it doesn't start with hitting snooze on your alarm.
It doesn't start with your morning at all, actually.
Yeah.
The foundation of a highly productive day is constructed in how you close the previous one.
Oh, I saw this in the material. I was looking at the 30-minute evening ritual suggested, and it is highly structured.
Very structured.
Yeah, you take 10 minutes to close the day and journal, 10 minutes to review tomorrow's calendar, 5 minutes to physically prepare your outfit, and 5 minutes to visualize the next day. Honestly, though, taking 5 minutes to lay out clothes feels a bit, trivial to me.
It sounds trivial or perhaps even vain.
Yeah.
But the mechanism behind it is deeply rooted in neuroscience.
Really? Just laying out a shirt.
Yes. Laying out your clothes prevents something called decision fatigue. Your brain is essentially a muscle, and it possesses a strictly limited capacity for making decisions each day.
Right.
If you burn through that cognitive capacity deciding what to wear or debating what to eat for breakfast, your decision quality for high-stakes tasks severely decreases before you have even opened your laptop.
I love thinking about the brain like a smartphone battery. If you wake up and have to spend energy opening your closet and debating between 3 shirts, boom, that is 5% of your battery drained right there.
Exactly.
Then you have to figure out what your first task of the day should be because you didn't look at your calendar the night before. Boom, another 10% drained.
It adds up fast.
By the time you actually sit at your desk, you're operating at 85% battery before you have completed a single ounce of real work.
That is the exact physiological reality. And the journaling portion of that evening routine, those first 10 minutes, is equally critical, if not more so.
Why is that?
Neuroscientist Alex Korb from UCLA has done fascinating research on this. He found that the simple act of journaling and consciously recalling positive past successes actively stimulates the production of serotonin in the brain.
Now, people usually just call serotonin the feel-good chemical, but its role in productivity goes way deeper than just improving your mood, doesn't it?
Much deeper. Serotonin specifically regulates delayed gratification.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it strengthens the prefrontal cortex's ability to override immediate impulses. When your serotonin levels are depleted, your brain loses its grip on long-term goals.
And that's when we reach for the phone.
Exactly. You become highly susceptible to short-term, low-effort pleasures. So taking a few minutes to document what you accomplished yesterday literally, biologically primes your brain to resist cheap distractions today.
That is incredible. You are physically upgrading your brain's hardware to delay gratification just by writing down a few wins.
It's a massive advantage.
But let's look at the modern reality. You do this perfectly. You protect your internal battery the night before. But the moment you sit at your desk, the world is actively engineered to steal your attention.
Which brings us to a vital paradigm shift. The concept of time management is a complete illusion.
A complete illusion?
Yes, you cannot manage time. Time passes regardless of what you do. You can only manage your attention.
Yes. Attention is the actual currency. and our smartphones are bankrupting us. There is a terrifying study from the universities of Würzburg and Nottingham-Trent that illustrates just how deep this goes.
The survey study.
Yeah. They surveyed participants on the importance of various things in their lives, and 37.4% rated their smartphone as equally or more important than their close friends.
That is deeply concerning.
Nearly 30% said it was as important or more important than their own parents.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it highlights a profound behavioral reprogramming. We are psychologically captive to these devices. In that very same study, researchers administered a concentration test. The participants' results were 26% higher when their phones were physically removed from the room entirely.
Wow.
Just having the device on the desk, even face down and on silent, drains your cognitive capacity because your brain has to actively expend energy suppressing the urge to check it.
26% higher performance just by putting the phone in another room. That is a massive, immediate competitive advantage available to anyone willing to endure the slight anxiety of being disconnected for a bit.
And the cost of staying connected is ruinous. Research by Gloria Mark at the University of California, Irvine reveals the true penalty of interruptions.
What did she find?
She found that every time you experience a context switch, meaning you stop your primary task to check a text message or a Slack notification, it takes the brain an average of 25 minutes to fully recover its original depth of focus.
25 minutes.
Every single time.
That means if you check your phone just 3 times in an hour, you are literally never entering a state of deep work. You are just constantly skimming the shallow surface of your focus.
You are experiencing what researchers call attention residue. Part of your brain is still stuck on the email you just read while you were trying to write a report.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. We become addicted to the dopamine rush of clearing notifications because it mimics the feeling of productivity. But it simply exhausts the brain, leaving us feeling entirely depleted by 5 p.m. with nothing substantive to show for it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Managing your attention isn't solely about putting your phone in a drawer or like using a website blocker. It is also about managing your own ambition.
That's a huge part of it.
The material introduces this concept called the idea buffet. We accumulate so many ideas from the people around us, and to protect our attention, we sometimes have to aggressively eliminate even the good ideas.
That is an incredibly painful thing for ambitious people to accept. We are conditioned to seize every opportunity.
We really are. I can actually relate to this perfectly. A couple of years ago, a colleague suggested I start a weekly industry newsletter.
Sounds like a solid idea.
It was objectively a great idea. There was a market cap, I had the contacts, it made total sense. So I spent weeks strategizing, setting up the platform, designing the logo, but I quickly realized it was consuming massive amounts of my mental bandwidth.
The attention residue.
Exactly. Bandwidth that was being siphoned directly away from my core work. I was dropping the ball on major projects to write a newsletter that no one even asked for. I had to aggressively kill the newsletter, even though it was a good idea, just to protect my primary focus.
It is the ultimate application of constraint. You have to actively prune the good opportunities so the great ones can thrive.
Right.
You must engineer your environment and your commitments to be simple enough that deep focus becomes the default state rather than a daily struggle.
But let's play devil's advocate and look at the darkest timeline here. What if you have done everything right? You put your phone in the fridge, you laid out your clothes the night before, your battery is at 100%, you said no to the idea buffet.
And you still procrastinate.
Yeah, you still find yourself staring blankly at the screen, avoiding the work.
If you have optimized your external systems to that degree, and you are still deeply avoiding the task, that indicates a much deeper structural misalignment.
This was the biggest aha moment for me. The ultimate secret, the single heaviest reason people continually procrastinate, is that they simply aren't doing meaningful work.
We constantly try to bandage a profound lack of purpose with shallow productivity hacks.
Yeah.
If the work itself feels pointless to you, no amount of journaling or phone hiding will force your brain to engage with it willingly.
There is an amazing analogy from Ryan Holiday regarding this. He talks about the obsession with speed reading. He notes that if you find yourself desperately wanting to speed read a book just to get through it faster, you have to stop and ask yourself, is this book actually any good?
That's a great point.
Life is too short to force yourself through bad books. And similarly, if you are constantly procrastinating and searching for life hacks to rush through your work, you have to stop and ask, is this work actually worth doing?
That is a highly clarifying question. Though we should note, sometimes the work is meaningful, but we mask our fear of failure behind a veil of perfectionism.
Oh, that's a big one.
We tell ourselves, I'm not procrastinating, I'm just waiting for the absolute perfect moment to start. Or, I am just holding myself to an elite standard. But perfectionism is very often just procrastination wearing a tuxedo.
Wow, procrastination wearing a tuxedo. So how do you rip that perfectionist mask off?
It requires developing what cognitive psychologists term learned resourcefulness.
Learned resourcefulness.
Yes. This is the learned capacity to self-regulate your emotions during highly ambiguous or stressful situations.
Yeah.
Instead of freezing up when the conditions aren't perfect, you leverage problem-solving skills to push through the friction.
You just figure it out as you go.
Exactly. You have to marry the high standards of a perfectionist with the gritty, pragmatic attitude of someone who understands that a finished, imperfect project is infinitely more valuable than a flawless concept that never leaves your hard drive.
That makes total sense. But there is another massive myth that needs to be shattered regarding finding this meaningful work. We are constantly bombarded by modern self-help gurus who insist that to find your true passion, you must constantly step outside your comfort zone.
The hustle culture narrative.
Right. Burn the boats, take massive risks, quit your corporate job and jump into the unknown.
Which raises an important question. Why have we culturally decided the comfort zone is a toxic place?
Weird, right?
Very. The Stoic practical stance on this is completely opposite to the guru narrative. The comfort zone is not a trap. It is a biologically and psychologically crucial foundation.
So it's actually good for us.
Highly necessary. If you are constantly in a state of high anxiety about paying your rent, or you have no social support system, your brain is operating in pure survival mode. You physically cannot produce your best, most creative, high-level work when your baseline cortisol levels are through the roof.
Exactly. You shouldn't be rushing to escape comfort. You should be rushing to build it. Build a massive foundation of comfort before taking the big swing.
Precisely.
Build up an emergency fund. Cultivate a strong, stable family life and close friendships. Develop a core, undeniable skill set that makes you employable anywhere. Once you have constructed that warm, secure comfort zone to retreat to, then you can safely take calculated, asymmetric risks without your brain interpreting every setback as a life or death threat.
It is about honoring the slow road to magic. You don't hurl yourself into chaos and hope for the best. You systematically build your way up from an unbreakable foundation of security.
So what does this all mean for the listener who is sitting there nodding along thinking, okay, I understand. Meaningful work cures procrastination. Build a comfort zone first.
But they're stuck.
Yeah, they're like, I am 25 or 35 or even 45, and I genuinely have no idea what my meaningful work or passion is yet.
The first step is to recognize that uncertainty is perfectly normal. If you do not know your final destination, you do not need to panic. You simply need to pick a direction and start walking.
Let's get moving.
Yes. And while you are figuring out the grand, overarching purpose of your life, the strategy is to ruthlessly focus on building universal skills.
Universal skills. These are the competencies that will pay massive dividends no matter what industry or career path you eventually fall in love with.
Correct. Let's look at the mechanics of a few of them. First, focus intensely on building self-discipline. This isn't just about waking up early. It translates directly to emotional regulation.
Right.
If you can control your impulses, you can navigate office politics and high-stress environments. Second, learn how to communicate and negotiate effectively.
Because almost every major success relies on leveraging other people's time and resources.
Exactly. If you can articulate a vision and negotiate for your value, you are indispensable in any field. And interestingly, the final universal skill to focus on is building physical strength and stamina.
I find it so compelling that physical strength makes that list. It isn't just about health. The mind and body are inextricably linked.
They absolutely are.
Enduring the physical discomfort of lifting weights or running trains, the exact same neural pathways required to endure tedious, difficult cognitive work. If you have the systemic discipline to pull your own weight physically, it translates directly to pulling your own weight mentally.
That's a great way to put it.
You just keep stacking these universal skills, discipline, communication, physical resilience, and eventually the path to meaningful work reveals itself because you are highly capable of seizing the opportunity when it appears.
You're actively preparing for the opportunity rather than waiting for the opportunity to arrive before you begin preparing.
We have dismantled a lot of myths today, but before you go out and completely redesign your evening routine or throw your smartphone into the ocean, we need to ground this in reality. You cannot fix a system until you know exactly where the leaks are.
And to move from abstract theory to concrete practice, we highly recommend implementing a strategy from management legend Peter Drucker.
Okay, what is it?
It is called the Know Thy Time exercise. For the next 2 weeks, do not rely on your memory or your calendar app. Keep a strict, hour-by-hour activity log on a physical notepad on your desk.
A physical notepad?
Yes. Write down exactly where every hour of your time is actually going. At the end of the 2 weeks, review that physical data and ruthlessly identify the trivial, non-productive time wasters. Ask yourself one simple question: what would happen if I just stopped doing this?
And if the honest answer is no, do not measure. Well, to close out our deep dive today, I want to leave you with one final mind-bending paradigm shift that completely flips everything we are told about motivation upside down.
The dominant cultural narrative is always YOLO, you only live once.
Right.
Life is short, the clock is ticking, time is running out, so you better hurry up and succeed.
Yeah, life is short, so hustle harder. But Darius Foroux asks a deeply profound question. What if you lived your life as though you were immortal?
That completely changes the frame.
Think about the psychological shift that occurs. If you knew you were going to live forever, how would your daily decisions change today? There would be absolutely no rush to chase hollow, short-term pleasures.
The panic disappears.
There would be no suffocating panic to become a millionaire by age 30. If you were immortal, you would suddenly possess the infinite patience required to save and invest your money safely. You would treat the people around you incredibly well because you would have to spend eternity with them.
That's a beautiful way to look at it.
You would happily take the time to slowly compound your success 0.1% a day over decades, entirely without anxiety.
It entirely removes the frantic desperation from our ambitions.
Okay, let's unpack this. It changes the game from a sprint to an infinite horizon. So I leave you with this to ponder: how would your actions today change if you stopped frantically rushing because life is short and instead started patiently building something forever? Keep building. We will see you next time.